Daf Yomi, Tractate Avodah Zarah, page 50, and starting from the bottom of 49b. Rav Yitzchak Bar Yosef says, Rav Yochanan says, in a case where it is known that these stones fell from the pile of stones, everyone agrees that they are prohibited. And this is the halacha, even according to the one who says idol worshippers do not worship fragments, as that statement applies only to a form of idol worship where that is not the normal manner in which it is worshipped. But here, where the stones thrown onto the pile are broken stones from the outset, this is its normal manner of worship. They disagree only when it is not specifically known where these stones came from. Now we're turning to 50a, top of the page. The words b'mikravot nami. B'mikravot nami dikarem min anafar. Devrei kol asurois. Kipri b'meruchakois. Furthermore, everyone agrees that also in the case of stones that are near the stone pile, dedicated to Mercury, with regard to which it can be said that they fell from it, they are prohibited. Rabbi Ishmael and the rabbis disagree only when the stones are distant. Veha betzad malkulis ketani my betzad abba moitidei. The Gemara challenges, but the Mishnah teaches that the stones are at the side of Mercury, indicating that they are nearby. The Gemara explains what is meant by the term at the side of Mercury. It means at the side of its 4 cubits. Rabbi Shmuel Savar, Ois in Malkulis Koton V'Tzad, Malkulis Kodol, Shalosh Tidamion, Malkulis Asuris, Shtayim Mutarois, Rabbanon Saveri, Enois in Malkulis Koton V'Tzad, Malkulis Godol, V'lo Yishna Shalosh, V'lo Shna Shtayim, Nirois Imoi Asurois, Shenirois Imoi Mutarois. The Gemara clarifies the dispute. Rabbi Ishmael holds that at times idol worshippers initially construct a small stone pile dedicated to Mercury at the side of a large stone pile dedicated to Mercury. Therefore, 3 stones, which resemble a complete pile, dedicated to Mercury, are prohibited. 2 stones, which do not resemble a stone pile, dedicated to Mercury, are permitted. Conversely, the rabbis hold that idol worshippers do not construct a small stone pile dedicated to Mercury at the side of a large stone pile dedicated to Mercury. Therefore, the halacha is not different in a case where there are 3 stones, and it is not different in a case where there are 2 stones. In both cases, those stones that can be seen together with the pile dedicated to Mercury are prohibited, as they may have fallen from it, whereas those that cannot be seen together with the stone pile are permitted. Amamal biyadua shenashlu mimenu devrei kol asurois urimini avanim shenashlu min malkulis nirois imoi asurois shenirois imoi mutarois. ורבי ישמעאל אומר 3 אסורות, 2 מותרות. אמר רבי לא הייתם שנעשו אלא המה שנמצאו. The master said in a case where it is known that these stones fell from it, everyone agrees that they are prohibited. And the Gemara raises a contradiction to Rabbi Yochanan's statement from his statement presented in a Braita with regard to stones that fell from a pile dedicated to Mercury. Those that can be seen together with it are prohibited, and those that cannot be seen together with it are permitted. And Rabbi Ishmael says, 3 stones are prohibited, but 2 stones are permitted. The Braita indicates that Rabbi Ishmael and the rabbis also disagree, where it is known that the stones fell from the stone pile. Rava said, do not say in the Braita stones that fell from a pile, rather say stones that were found adjacent to the pile. There is no certainty that they fell from the pile. Rabbi Yishmael Amer, Shtayim b'tefisa, lo asur, Shalosh, afilu b'meruchakois asurois. The Gemara asks, and does Rabbi Yishmael actually hold that 2 stones that are found adjacent to the pile are permitted? But isn't it taught in the Braita, Rabbi Yishmael says, 2 stones that are found in the area of the pile dedicated to Mercury are prohibited? 3 stones are prohibited even if they are found at a distance. Rava said it is not difficult. Here, in the second brisa, is referring to a case where both pile and the adjacent stones are in the same area, in which case the stones are forbidden. There, in the first brisa, it is referring to a case where they are in 2 adjacent areas, in which case they are permitted. And what is considered 2 adjacent areas? This is referring to a case where there is an elevated area between them, and evidently the stones did not fall from the pile. Omar kulis ki hay gabna mini hade be'atanya elu hein avni beis kulis achas mikan achas al gabehen Amar Rav ki tanyai be'ikam kulis. The Gemara asks, and are stones that are merely adjacent to each other in this way considered a pile dedicated to Mercury? But isn't it taught in the Braita there are the stones of a place of worship dedicated to Mercury? These are the stones of a place of worship dedicated to Mercury. One stone is situated on one side, and one is situated on the other side, and one is situated on top of them, but not where the stones are merely adjacent to each other. Rava said when that brisa is taught is with regard to the main pile of stones dedicated to Mercury, but the stones that are added to it are not necessarily arranged in this way. Beit Yanai Malka Charuv, Oto Goyim, Okimu Beit Markulis, Ato Goyim, Achrine de lo palche le Markulis, Shakalin hu, Vechipu, Bahen Drachim, Us Sitaratois, Ustaratot, Ikarabana de Farsi, Ikarabana de lo Farsi. The Gemara relates the house of King Yanai was destroyed, and Gentiles came and placed stones dedicated to Mercury in it. Later, other Gentiles who did not worship Mercury came and took those stones and paved paths and streets with them. There were rabbis who withdrew from these paths, and there were other rabbis who did not withdraw from these paths. Weiter in the Gemara. Okay, there were rabbis who withdrew from these paths, and there were other rabbis who did not withdraw from these paths. Amar Rav Yochanan, benan shel kedoshim halach alehem, benan nifrosh behem ma nenu. Benan shel kedoshim, Rabbi Menachem, beRabbi Simai, ve'amayim kaule benan shel kedoshim, de'afilu b'tzurta de'zuza la mistakad. Rabbi Yochanan said that the Son of Holy Ones walks on them, Should we withdraw from them? The Gemara asks, who is the person referred to as the son of holy ones? The Gemara answers, is Rabbi Menachem, the son of Rabbi Simai. And why did they call him son of holy ones? They did so because Rabbi Menachem would not even gaze at the form on a coin, as it was sometimes an idolatrous symbol. My time of demand Farish. Sofer laki hadam Rav Gidel Amara Rav Chia bar Yosef Amara. Minaim letakoi v'savoy Zarah she'en la betila ilomis. Shene'emar v'yitzmenu lebabao. V'yochlu zivchem v'yism. Ma me'sein la betila lo ilam. Af tikoi v'savoy Zarah she'en la betila lo ilam. The Gemara asks, what is the reason of the one who withdraws from those paths? He holds in accordance with that which Rav Gidel says, that Rav Chia bar Yosef says, that Rav says. From where is it derived that, with regard to an offering brought in idolatrous worship, that there can never be any nullification of its prohibited status? This is derived from a verse. As it is stated, they joined themselves to Baal Peor and ate of the offerings to the dead. Psalms 106:28. Just as the prohibited status of a corpse has no nullification, and it is forever prohibited to derive benefit from it, so too the prohibited status of an offering brought in idolatrous worship has no nullification ever. Parish. Amar be'ena ke'en panim veleka. And the one who does not withdraw from those paths says, in order for idol worship to prohibit an offering, I require the offering to be like those offerings sacrificed inside the temple. And there is no parallel to this offering in the temple service, as stones are not brought as offerings. Amar Rav Yosef bar Abba, Ikla Rabba, bar Yirmiel Yatrin. V'yad ve'aydi v'atidem yedei goy shehevi avanim min ha-merkulis v'chiba b'heder achim Stratayos. Rav Yosef bar Abba said, Rabbi bar Yirmiyah happened to come to our locale, and when he came, he brought the following brayta with him. In the case of a Gentile who brought stones from a pile dedicated to Mercury and paved paths, and their theaters with them. And now we turn to 50b, top of the page. Mutavos, they are permitted. Yisrael. Shehev yavonim min ha-makulis v'chipa b'hen. Torachim u'stratoyos asuros. V'les negal. V'lo bar negal. Div Birkina. They are permitted as a Gentile nullified their prohibited status in the case of a Jew who brought stones from a pile dedicated to Mercury and paved paths, streets with them, they are prohibited. And there is neither a carpenter nor a son of a carpenter who can resolve this. Meaning, no one can resolve the difficulty inherent in the statement. Not a Torah scholar, not even a scholar who is the son of a scholar. Amar Rav Sheshes. Rav Sheshes said, Ana, lo negarana, velo bar negarana, prekana le, makushile, de Rav Gidel be'ena ke'en panim veleka. Rav Sheshes said, as for me, I'm not a carpenter, nor am I the son of a carpenter. And yet, I will resolve the difficulty. What is the difficulty that Rabbi bar Yirmiyah finds in that brayta? The brayta is difficult because of the statement of Rav Gidel that prohibited status of offerings brought in idol worship can never be revoked. Okay? This is not difficult. As in order for idol worship to prohibit an offering, I require the offering to be like those offerings sacrifices to the temple, and there is no parallel offering of stones in the temple. Okay. Amar Yosef Barabba Ikla Rabba Bar Yasari Yasarai Mishniza Yade Matliin Zahamin Bashvis Metaliin Zahamin Bamoed. Yosef Barabba said, Rabba Bar Yirmiyah happened to come to our locale. And when he came, he brought the following braita with him. One may remove worms from a tree and place manure on a cut in a tree during the sabbatical year. But one may not remove worms or place manure on a cut during the intermediate days of the festival. Kan v'chan ein megazmin pisarin shemen nigzom ben bamoed ben bashvis v'les negar v'lo bar negar difrikina. The Braita continues both here in the case of the sabbatical year and there in the case of the intermediate days of the festival. One may not prune the trees, but one may smear oil on the previously pruned tree on the place where one pruned it in order to prevent the tree from being damaged, both during the intermediate days of the festival and during the sabbatical year. And there is neither a carpenter nor a son of a carpenter who can resolve this. Amar Ravina Ana lo nigal Ana lo bar nigal ana Umafriken alab Mai kashilet Ili memoed ashvis Kashile maishna de shvis Maishna de shari maishna moed asu Mi dami shvis malacha asarach Manat tircha shari Berboed afilu tircha nami asu. Ravina said, Ravina Amar Ravina Analo Nagal. Alright, okay. Ravina said, as for me, I am not a carpenter, nor am I the son of a carpenter, and yet I will resolve the difficulty. What is the difficulty that Rabba Bar Yirmiyah finds in the Braisa? If we say that the difference between the intermediate days of the festival and the sabbatical year poses a difficulty to him, this cannot be so. Cannot be so. One cannot explain that Rabba Bar Yirmiyah is asking what is different about the sabbatical year that one is permitted to remove worms and place manure on a cut. Manure on a cut? And what is different about the intermediate days of the festival that it is permitted to do so? As this is not a valid question. Are they comparable? With regard to the sabbatical year, the merciful one prohibits only agricultural labor, whereas other forms of exertion are permitted. With regard to the intermediate days of the festival, even other forms of exertion are prohibited. Ve'ela zihum agizum kakashile ma'ishna zihum deshari or ma'ishna gizum deaso midami. Zihum okome ilana ushre gizum avroye ilana gasu. Ravina suggests rather perhaps the difference between placing manure and pruning poses a difficulty to him. What is different about placing manure is that it is permitted during the sabbatical year, and what is different about pruning that it is prohibited. Ravina rejects this suggestion. This is also not a valid question. Are they comparable? The purpose of placing manure is to preserve the tree, and therefore is permitted, whereas the purpose of pruning is to enhance the tree, and it is therefore prohibited. יקוטמין אותן, יוסין להן בתים, משכין אותן עד ראש השנה, Ad Rosh Hashanah im Hashvi'it la. Ravina suggests, rather, perhaps the contradiction between the aforementioned Braita with regard to placing manure and another Mishnah with regard to placing manure poses a difficulty to him, as the Braita teaches. One may remove worms from a tree and place manure on a cut in a tree during the sabbatical year, and one may raise a contradiction from the Mishnah and should be eat to, or one may place manure on the saplings, and one may bind their branches to the trunk so that they might grow upright, and one may not lop off their branches to promote their growth and make shelters for them to shield them from the sun and water them. All these actions are permitted until Rosh Hashanah and the sabbatical year. One can infer that until Rosh Hashanah, yes, one may place manure on the tree. During the sabbatical year itself, one may not do so. Vedilma. Kedav ukva barchama. Diamar Rav Ukva Barachma Tre Kish Kushe Havu Chal Avroye Ilana Versur Chal Stome Pile Ushire Hachnami Tre Zehumi Have Chad Leukame Ne Ushre Chal Avroye Ilane Versur. Ravina rejects this suggestion, but perhaps one can account for the apparent contradiction in a similar fashion to the explanation of Rav Ukva Bar Chama, as Ukva Bar Chama says, there are two types of hoeing. The purpose of one type is to enhance the tree's health and is therefore prohibited, and the purpose of one is to draw up cracks in the ground, which is permitted, as it is done only to prevent the trees from dying and not to enhance their growth. So too, one may suggest that these are two types of placing. The newer one type, whose purpose is to preserve trees and is therefore permitted, and one type whose purpose is to enhance trees and is therefore prohibited. Ve'ela sika asicha ka shile diktani sachin shemen digzom ben b'moed ben b'shvit uraminu sakine sapagin umenakvin umifatmin otan ad Rosh Hashanah. In Bashvila. Ravina suggests, rather, perhaps the contradiction between the halacha and the Braita with regard to smearing oil and the halacha and another Mishnah with regard to smearing oil poses a difficulty for him. As the Braita teaches, one may smear oil on the previously pruned tree on the place where he pruned it, both during the intermediate days of the festival and during the sabbatical year, and one may raise contradiction from the Mishnah in Shavuot 2:5. One may smear oil on the unripe figs in the 6th year of the sabbatical cycle in order to accelerate their ripening, and similarly, one may pierce them and fill the cut with oil to facilitate the ripening until Rosh Hashanah. One can infer that until Rosh Hashanah, yes, one may smear, but during the sabbatical year itself, one may not do so. Midami. Ravina rejects the suggestion that is also not a valid question. Are they comparable? Are they comparable? Here, the purpose of smearing oil on the place where the tree was pruned is to preserve the tree, and therefore is permitted. There, the purpose of smearing oil on the unripe figs is to enhance and enlarge the fruit, and is therefore prohibited. Okay. Continue. Weiter. Okay, Amar le Rav Sama Barei Rav Ashi Ravina Bayernia. Sieg in the Moed is in the Moed. Kakashi Mechti Hai Okumai Maishna Hai the Shari Maishna Hai Asir Hai Nud Amar le Let Nagar Rabar Nagar Diprekina. Rav Sama, the son of Rav Ashi, says Ravina, the contradiction between the halacha with regard to smearing oil during the intermediate days of the festival and the halacha with regard to placing manure during the intermediate days of the festival poses a difficulty for Rabbi Yirmiyah. since the purpose of this action is to preserve the tree, and the purpose of that action is to preserve the tree, what is different in this case that it is permitted, and what is different in that case that it is prohibited? This is the reason that Rabbi Bar Yirmiyah said to him. Oh, okay, it's Rabbi Bar Yirmiyah. Rabbi Bar Yirmiyah said to him, there is neither a carpenter nor a son of a carpenter who can resolve this.
אמר לי אביי לרבי מה ישנה שבר דהבה לי כאין זריחה זרק נמי הבה לי כאין זריקה אמר לי באינה זריקה משתברס ולקה. Rabbi Yehuda says that Rav says, in the case of an object of idol worship that is worshipped by means of a stick, meaning, for example, by beating a stick on another in order to produce noise, if one broke a stick before it, he is liable. If he threw a stick before it, he is exempt. Abaye said to Rav, what is different about the case where he broke a stick? In this case, one is liable because it is similar to slaughtering an offering, which is a rite performed in the temple. So too, in the case of where one threw a stick, it is similar to the sprinkling of the blood on the altar. Rava said to Abaye, in order for a sacrificial rite to be similar to the sprinkling of blood, I require a form of throwing that scatters the offering. And that is not the case here. Abaye raised an objection to Rava's explanation of the right to an objection to Rava's explanation of the right to one who fed an idol excrement or poured a chamber pot of urine before an Ezra libation. What is it? What's the halacha?